Welcome to the African Youth Empowerment Series, where we speak on the role of African youth in the development of African nations. Today we're here with the Monash SRC President, Neeraj Madzivanyika. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Coffee?
We wanted to talk to you about the situation in Zim. Do you see new hope within Zimbabweans under the new leadership? Do you see a possibility for change?
Under the new leadership, I feel that there is a possibility of change. In the very short space that the new leadership has been in that position, we have seen a lot of action, a bit more action than we've seen in the past in terms of contacting of investors, in terms of actually engaging with the youth on different fora. For instance, some of the conferences that were held at at a venue in Borodale, where the president invited the youth to participate and to give feedback on the things that they need to see ahead of the forum, the international business forum that he attended. So that type of leadership in which there's constant communication with the population and the use of social media to communicate with the people, I feel is a step in the right direction in opening up Zimbabwe, as the slogan has been for the past few months, opening up Zimbabwe for business to the international community. I feel that's a step in the right direction.
And what would encourage you as a Zimbabwean when you complete your studies to want to go back and work in the Zimbabwean industry? What changes would you like to see?
I think it's what would encourage me to go is seeing other people of my age actively participating in the building of the country. It's not just the role of people who are over 45, who are not considered youth, to build Zimbabwe. It's not just the role of people holding political office to change our country. When I see young entrepreneurs who are doing big things in Zimbabwe, it encourages me as a young Zimbabwean to go back home and play my part in building the Zimbabwe I want to see.
I'm sure there are also some areas that you're concerned about in Zimbabwe right now. What areas do you feel our current government need to work on and change to encourage more youth to be involved within the nation?
I feel our government needs to do more in terms of making business easier in Zimbabwe, making the opening of business less bureaucratic and easier for youths. And also, if we improve our banking sector in Zimbabwe in terms of the interest rates that are there, in terms of getting loans and the cash crisis in Zimbabwe, that's a very contentious issue. If that changes, you'll see that a lot of people would be interested in going back to build Zimbabwe and to help build industry in Zimbabwe.
Speaking on that, it's not just the government's responsibility to fix, and it's not just the youth. We also need to look at the international community and Africa as a whole in terms of helping Zimbabwe get to the level that it should be at. What do you think the international community needs to do in order for Zimbabwe to really be able to function and start growing again and developing?
I think we need to open up more in terms of intra-Africa trade. The trade that should happen between Zimbabwe and the fellow African states needs to increase, because there's some things that Zimbabwe produces cheaper. Zimbabwe has a comparative advantage in producing some things as opposed to other things, if all things are equal in terms of the industries, and if the industries are revived. We need to start cooperating with each other's with our other African countries, so that Zimbabwe gets back to its former status of being the breadbasket of Africa. The resources are there, but if we just improve the terms of trade, if we improve the means with which we trade and reduce the trade restrictions with other countries in terms of mutually beneficial international trade, that would be great. I'm not very big on fundings that come from internationals, from other countries, because many a times funding is not really beneficial to the country. It's mainly just giving Zimbabwe a fish when we need to learn how to fish.
Sure.
So dead aid is a problem in Africa, in which we get scratched where it doesn't itch. They give us things that we really don't need, like they give us money to buy clothes when we actually what we need is investment in our small businesses. What we need is investment in our industry. That's what we need to grow as a country. So that's the type of help that Zimbabwe would need from the international community, mainly focusing on Africa, because we have the resources, we have the land in which to produce great wealth.
That is true. The point on dead aid is a very good one, and inter-Africa trading would really be a great solution. And just from your speaking on small businesses and understanding of Zimbabwe, are you aware of any opportunities that are available for the youth, just off of the top of your head, that you have seen since the change in leadership, or that you believe that more youth should get involved in?
To be honest, there are not many opportunities that I can see, that I can think of the top of my head, that are presently available for the youth. But the onus is upon us as youth to create opportunities for ourselves. The battles that we are going to have to fight as the youth of Zimbabwe are not with the military. The battles that we are supposed to fight as the youth are economic battles. And we need to be selfless in that we might have to struggle for a bit, but we have to look at the benefits that will come from the struggle that we have. For instance, starting a business is not an easy thing, but in the long run, it will create more employment. And you're looking at the opportunity cost. Many people would rather hunt for a job. And right now, as it stands, it's not very feasible to look for a job in Zimbabwe, with the country with about 90 plus percent unemployment.
Sure.
So our responsibility right now is not to look for jobs. It's to create them. The opportunities are there in industries that are not fully developed. We need to dig from the pool of knowledge that's there, that we have, because Zimbabweans are actually very educated. If we do that, it will help us find areas in which we can develop.
That's a good point on development and the strategies that we need to create jobs. We had a discussion on the brain drain in Zimbabwe a bit earlier, and one point that we came across is globalization, the use of internet to connect us, allowing people like you in the diaspora to work for Zimbabwe while you're here. Do you see that as one of the biggest ways in which we can prevent or sort of keep our resources, our human resources, and keep our educated peers involved in the nation, even if they're not necessarily living in it, to help sort of rebuild it? The use of things like internet and such platforms. Do you believe that is the future way of also helping develop the nation for people in the diaspora youth?
I think that is a very good way in which people in the diaspora can help contribute to rebuilding Zimbabwe, but I am a strong believer in actually being on the ground, because there's a difference between being actually on the ground to see what's there and actually building it. It might not sound as the best option there is, because you're looking at the situation that's in Zim right now. There are no jobs. Even if you have money in the bank, you cannot get the money out of the bank, and you're looking at countries outside of Zimbabwe who are offering you a huge chunk of money to feed you and your family. So I feel that Zimbabweans in the diaspora need to have the same spirit that the people who fought for Zimbabwe had. That even if the contribution that they're going to give to the development of Zimbabwe is not going to benefit them immediately, it's going to benefit their children and their children's children who will come after them in rebuilding the Zimbabwe that we want. So if there's anything that we can do is encourage one another who are not in Zimbabwe. It's okay to go outside of Zimbabwe and find the knowledge that you need, but it's also even better to come back and help build Zimbabwe.
That's an amazing point. I think that's a direct challenge to all Zimbabweans across the world to come back to Zim and contribute in some form, maybe come and teach for a week or start a program or something like that. That's an amazing insight. How can people get in touch with you and engage more with you? Like the way you see things, the way you understand Zim as a Zimbabwean youth, I think a lot of people would like to engage more with you on these topics. And maybe how, when you do go back to Zimbabwe, they'll come with you as an army.
Definitely. On social media, I'm there on Facebook with just Neeraj Madzivanyika. It's easy to find me on Facebook. Yeah, that's one of the easiest ways to get into contact with me.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you so much for appearing on our episode, and thank you so much for all the knowledge you contributed to us.
Thank you very much. It was an honor being here.
We'll see you next time on another episode of African Youth Empowerment Series.